morning, Newsboys, and I'm here today with my dad, Michael Bensimon, for a personal interview about when he was in the Army. That's right, folks, he fought for our country. So, Michael Bensimon, what was it like in the Army? This is just a question to begin before we move to my list. What was it like in the Army?
Well, just to be clear, I wasn't in the Army exactly. I was in the Air Force.
That relates to one of the questions we can cross. That relates to one of the questions. We can cross that question out. The question was, what part of the Army were you in? Air Force. So.
I was in the Air Force. Yes, I was in the Air Force. That's correct. I did want to start in the Army. I did 5 weeks in Fort Knox on basic training. But when I got out and they offered me to sign the contract and said, Army's not for me. And then later on I decided to sign up and join the Air Force instead. It was a good decision.
All right, then let's move on to your first question. How long were you in the Army?
Just about 3 years.
3 years, eh? What made you leave the Army?
Well, at the time I was about 25 years old and I wanted to settle down and start a family. And it's not easy to have a family when you're in the military.
Talking to like the black females about it, okay?
And it's not easy to have a family when you're in the military because of the schedule and the hours and everything. So I decided to leave the Air Force in order to try to get a good job, go to school, and settle down and start a family.
Interesting choice. But I have another question. What age did you start working in the Army, Mr. Bensimon?
Let's see, I was 22, just turned 22 years old when I joined up.
And that settles our first 4 questions, everyone. Stay tuned for the next half. You ready? Okay, let's go. Who did you work with in the Army? Like some people you remember who you worked with.
Oh yes. Yes, I still keep in touch with quite a few of my Air Force buddies.
Just say one.
Just say one of them?
Yeah.
Oh, my friend Sam. You know, he's really good. He works for the DEA now. He's a scientist. And he was a boss of mine, and he was really nice.
Oh, he was your boss?
Yes.
Oh, then that answers the 6th question too. Who was your boss in the Army? And number 7 out of the 8. Did you have a crush in the Army?
Oh, I've had a couple of them.
I was gonna say who is still all of them.
Okay, so I did date this one girl in the Air Force. Her name was Rosalind. She was amazing. She became a doctor. And then I dated this other girl named Tara.
That's a pretty name. That's a pretty name. Tara, I'm complimenting your name.
And she ended up becoming a nurse in the Air Force.
Wow.
And I didn't really date too much other than that. But I've had lots of crushes of girls that,
All right, and Mike, one last question overall. Why did you decide to be in the Army? And what is your favorite part of being in the Army?
Well, I wanted to serve my country, especially in the year after 9/11. You know, after the big terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center. I decided that I wanted to volunteer my time to serve my country. And I believe I had the skill set to be able to do well in the Air Force. And so I joined up, and I was a communications and computer specialist in the Air Force, and I did very much enjoy that, and I really enjoyed the people that I worked with. It was a great experience, and I encourage anyone to serve.
All right. And Mike, one last final question to the viewers. Is there anything you regretted doing in the Army?
Yeah, I mean, there's always things that you feel like you could have done better, that maybe you would have come along farther.
Also, did you ever get to fight? in the army? Like a war or something?
Thankfully, no. Thank God, I've never been in combat, and my 3 years was mostly spent training. But thankfully, I was always available to deploy and go. But thankfully, I was never called to do so.
Is that your army hat you're wearing?
Yes, this is my Air Force hat.
Show
I
it
bought
to the
it.
viewers.
It's a solid 20 years old by now. Let me think. Wow, yeah, it's about 20 years old.
Right, everyone. That's today on Abby's Home News. See you next time, News Boos, and maybe we'll actually go out into the world, interview some of my friends, teachers. See you later, News Boos. Hang on.